What should be the priorities? How do we reprogram Northern defense?
We are also ready for more difficult circumstances.
But we are overall on an escalatory path.
War against Ukraine is also a war against Europe.
This is the new reality we are having.
This creates new opportunity for Nordic security and defense cooperation.
NATO is the framework in which European defense and deterrence will be strengthened.
Postmodern period in the history of Europe is over.
So we want to innovate and out-innovate China and Russia.
We're seeing so many other turning points in Europe, we're almost struggling to keep up.
Unity is our response in Finland, in Europe, in the world.
Prime Minister, ministers, ladies, gentlemen, our streaming audience, welcome to the Helsinki Security Forum 2023, deterring, defending, and securing Europe in an era of radical uncertainty. My name is Charly Salonius-Pasternak. I will be your host this afternoon. At the Finnish Institute of International Affairs, I lead our US research center on US politics and power, as well as focusing on regional security and defense. To formally open the Helsinki Security Forum, I'd like to ask first the acting director of our institute, Samu Paukkunen. Some of you might have noticed our actual usual director is trying to become president in Finland, so he's unable to speak here. But I would like to ask Samu to come here first, and after that, we will be hearing from Kaja Sauer, who is Finland's ambassador to Germany, as well as the chair of the board of FIIA. Samu, take it away.
Thank you, Charlie. I hope you can all hear me. I just dropped the main part of my voice machine, but I'll try to survive. Your Excellencies, Prime Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the second edition of the Helsinki Security Forum. As Charlie already introduced, my name is Samu Paukkunen, and I'm the acting director at the Finnish Institute of International Affairs, FIIA, the organizers of this event. This is the second time that we are arranging the Helsinki Security Forum, and this is the first time that is taking place on NATO soil. The idea of the forum was born some years ago when it felt that there is a need to discuss European and global security issues from a northern perspective. Little did we know at that time just how urgent that need would become and how radically the security situation would change. Russian invasion in Ukraine was an earthquake that sent ripple effects around the world, shattering the foundations of the European security architecture. It also revealed the true nature of Russian leadership that aims not only to redraw the limits of its influence, but also the national boundaries. For Putin, the war might be about spheres of influence or about his legacy. No one knows but himself. For the brave Ukrainian nation, it is about their lives and the lives of their families. For us, it is about the right to decide our own future. It is about limits and boundaries, boundaries that are in place to mark the end of a particular area and the beginning of another. This is ours, and that is yours. This is why the title of our forum is Deter, Defend, and Secure. When Russia does not respect these boundaries, it must be encouraged to respect our capability to deter and defend. Russia must be made to understand that there are both limits to its influence and borders that cannot be crossed. And what must we do? We need to decide ourselves to what level the deterrence is going to be built. We must understand how to better defend ourselves, how we can help Ukraine to defend itself, and what needs to be done to achieve this capability. But we need also to understand what our limitations are, our weaknesses, and our limits of influence. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we have the Helsinki Security Forum. In here, we can think and talk, and preferably in that order, to better understand what we are facing and what needs to be done. This is also why we will discuss a wide range of issues that are connected to defending and securing Europe, deterring against Russia's expansionist ambitions. Today we will hear views from Finnish government leaders and from the Prime Minister of Estonia on how to make our region and Europe more safe. Tomorrow we will hear from a wide range of experts on what the implications of Russia's war of aggression are outside of Europe and how the wider global security challenges and great power competition affects Europe's security. Tomorrow we will have the opportunity to hear from Saker Kavoli, Sweden's Minister of Defense Jonsson, and many others on what needs to be done to enhance Europe's defense capabilities. We will also talk about the nuclear deterrence and economic safety. Dear friends, this is a group effort of our institute. With it, we want to not only raise issues, questions, and discussions that we consider to be the most relevant from Northern European point of view, but it also showcases FIIA's expertise. I want to thank all my colleagues who have contributed to planning and preparing this event. I also want to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland, the Ministry of Defense, the City of Helsinki and Patria for the support we have received from them and without which this event would not have been possible. I would now like to yield the podium to Ambassador Kai Sauer, the chairman of the FIIA board. Kai, the floor is yours.
Prime Minister Orpo, Prime Minister Kallas, Prime Minister Valtonen, Minister Adlercreutz, Mayor Vartiainen, Minister Iloniemi, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. 5 months ago, on 4th of April, Finland joined NATO. The accession process was completed in record time, which should be read as an expression of confidence in Finland's political and military value to the alliance. However, the NATO enlargement year 2023 should also include Sweden. The exact logic of delaying escapes me. In the time of insecurity, we should swiftly include a military, strategically and politically important ally. Let me now offer 5 personal observations on how Finland is contributing to the alliance. First, there are the air, sea, and defense capabilities. In 2021, in our largest defense procurement decision, we opted to replace our F-18 fleet with 64 F-35 fighters. Together with the F-35s of Norway and Denmark, this is the largest F-35 concentration outside the United States. Besides the hardware, Finland brings to the table an old-fashioned military mandatory service, which allows us to mobilize on a short notice 280,000 trained men and women. The total size of the reserve is close to 900,000. This is of a population of 5.5 million. It is approximately the same fighter per capita ratio as ancient Sparta had. The combination of military hardware and a large reserve is complemented by a strong pro-defense attitude of the population. Polls show that more than 80% of the interviewees declare readiness to take up arms in defense of the country. This is an extraordinary figure, matched in Europe only by few. Secondly, there's geography. Finland stretches from the Arctic to the Baltic Sea. We have an 800-mile border with Russia, and as the high north gains more strategic weight, Finland and Sweden are providing for more counterbalance against Russia and China. Thirdly, there's technology. Finland is a tech country, as is Sweden. Few have considered that Finnish and Swedish NATO membership, 2 out of the 3 global 5-6G providers are joining NATO. Besides Nokia and Ericsson, the third one is, of course, the Chinese Huawei. Also, Finland is a front-runner in transforming technologies such as quantum computing, which, as we are all beginning to learn, has increasing relevance to security. Fourth, we are all well familiar with the concept of total defense. This means that our military and civilian structures, together with the private sector and civil society, are acting as one. As an example, please note the 3 words: Cyber Defense Reserve. Cyber Defense Reserve. These 3 words unite, firstly, the academia and the private sector, secondly, the military, and thirdly, the civil society. My 5th and last point is responsibility. We have a strong Nordic identity, and of course we would prefer to have Canada as our biggest neighbor, but we know that geography cannot be changed. We are not out there to provoke, but aim to project stability and predictability. This should also serve the interests of the alliance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm particularly grateful for the presence of Prime Minister Orpo, Foreign Minister Valtonen, and later in the afternoon of Minister of Defense Häkkänen here today. Their presence not only shows commitment to the Helsinki Security Forum, but it also gives us the opportunity to hear from them what kind of a profile the future NATO member Finland will assume. The 3 Finnish ministers will be in the key role in preparing the Finnish government's report on foreign and security policy. Together with the defense report, they will be the first documents to officially announce the elements of Finland's NATO identity. These documents are public and should be of great interest to our conference audience. Dear ministers, now we are looking forward to your contributions. Thank you.
So, we're ready to start session 1. Thank you for your opening words. We're going to be talking about deterrence, defense, and security. This first session will be split up into 2 sections, as it were. In the first section, we're going to hear keynote speeches by Prime Minister Orpo, and then immediately followed by Foreign Minister Valtonen. Then we're going to have here on stage a discussion interview with Prime Minister Kallas, as well as Minister Valtonen. The second part will be started by a keynote speech by Defense Minister Häkkänen, followed by a panel where we'll be much freer to discuss and give our views than the ministers are, with Heather Conley, who's the president of the German Marshall Fund, as well as Sten Rynning, who's professor and dean at the University of Southern Denmark. But if I could first ask Prime Minister Petteri Orpo to take the stage. He's also served as Minister for Interior and Finance, as well as serving in various parliamentary committees, including Foreign and Defense. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Prime Minister Kaja Kallas, ministers, ladies and gentlemen. It is impossible to see what the future brings to us. However, when we understand the changes taking place, when we know exactly what we want, and when we have a courage to do the right thing at the right time, when we can have the great impact of our fate. On 24th February 22, we woke up to a new reality. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine shocked the whole world. It was also the reason Finland decided to apply for NATO membership. Today, less than 2 years later, we are full member of the alliance. Our membership will strengthen security and stability not only for Finland, but also for Northern Europe. As a nation and as an ally, we are currently defining how our membership in NATO will look like. The government will outline the result of this work in 2 key documents: the government report on Finnish foreign and security policy and the government defense report. This work has only started. However, some facts are known to us. We are a Nordic country. We are an Arctic country. We are one of the countries by the Baltic Sea. We are a country with 1,300 kilometers of common border with Russia. We see ourselves shouldering a significant share of the responsibility for the entire alliance's security. When we look at our membership, it will be crucial to ensure that the alliance's capabilities, which now include Finland's capabilities, are strong enough to deter any threats and strong enough to defend us in any possible scenario. I would like to stress that we are determined to be a reliable partner to other NATO countries, to whole alliance. Finland will fully participate in the planning of NATO's collective deterrence and defense. We are ready to give help to our allies and to receive it. During the first months of membership, we have been on a steep learning curve to find out what those commitments mean. To be a part of alliance, it is about how we can benefit the entire alliance. So, a key priority for Finland is to have our neighbor Sweden around the same table as a full member of NATO as soon as possible. Because without Sweden, our membership is not completed. You have heard the Finnish political leadership say this before, but I want to stress that it is not just words. I have a clear message for you. It is with Sweden as an ally that also we, Finland, can become an even better ally to NATO. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has taught us some valuable lessons. First lesson is that when we are united, we are stronger. When Finland decided to seek membership in NATO, we were united, and I'm proud of it. It was Finnish people who showed decision makers the way to NATO. When Finland decided to give strong support to Ukraine, we were united. Now, more than 18 months after the start of the war, nearly 90% of Finns continue to support Finland's response to Russia's invasion. This is the highest number in Europe, and it strongly reflects the principled position of Finnish people. And that is something I was proud to tell to President Zelensky when I visited Kyiv a month ago. In the European Union, when we have made decision to both strongly condemning Russia's illegal aggression and our support to Ukraine, we have also found ourselves united. It is important to send a strong signal that we will continue to support Ukraine and its sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity over the long term. The second lesson is that we have to keep developing our international defense cooperation. The United States is one of Finland's most important allies. Our goal is now to conclude the ongoing negotiation on the defense cooperation agreement with the United States. The agreement will provide an up-to-date framework for our cooperation. It will reinforce Finland's security and promote the fulfillment of our NATO membership obligations. Of the Nordic and Baltic countries, Norway, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania already have an agreement in place, and Sweden and Denmark are in the process of negotiations. The European Union is Finland's most important political and economic frame of reference and community of values. Europe is now at the crossroads. We are entering in a new phase with an aggressive Russia trying to form new alliances, a rising China and multipolar world. Even more than before, a strong, well-functioning and united union will be vital for Finland. My government will be actively involved in building a stronger union. This is my personal priority, because the third lesson we have learned is that we will need more EU, but focusing on basics. Again, our unity is our strength. We saw this during the pandemic, and we see it now during Russia's illegal aggression against Ukraine. However, we must not forget that Russia has started challenging the European security architecture already before 24th February 2022. For that reason, I'm convinced that Russia will keep on challenging our security on long term. And to counter this, we will need a strong Europe with a strong response. This is something I will discuss with President Macron when we meet next week in Paris. We cannot build our security on the capabilities of our US allies only. Europe must take greater responsibility for its own security. We, the European countries, must reinforce our own capabilities. And the European Union must strengthen its resilience and its position as a geopolitical actor. We are now moving in this direction. This is important not only for the EU, but also for our partners, because a strong and well-functioning EU will also benefit them. And a stronger Europe also means a stronger NATO. We must now take steps to reinforce the European defense industry. To do that, we must think how the innovations made in other sectors of the economy could support the defense industries. We need to improve our security of supply. We need to ramp up our production capabilities. And we need to sustain strategy which will enable the defense industry to plan for a long term. In short, we need to take the European defense industry to the next level. Traditionally, the Finnish society has enjoyed high level of safety and security. Our comprehensive security model is internationally unique and respected. But the world today is unpredictable and complex. This also means that we must become even better. We must take sure that the level of our preparedness and the resilience of our society will help us respond to new threats. To achieve this, my government will carry out a review of how we currently manage our national security. And, if necessary, we will make changes to structures administration, and the forms of political guidance. The government will ensure that public authorities have sufficient powers and resources to counter threats that are identified in the national risk assessment and to manage crises. I was a Minister of Interior in 2015 and 16 when we suddenly saw a growing number of migrants entering the European Union from Russia. This was a good lesson. We identify areas where our society is vulnerable to influencing activities by foreign states. Those shortcomings need to be fixed. In short, again, my government will do nationally what is needed to respond to demands of this new security environment. I would like to underline that sustainability of public finances is also security. Only economically stable Finland can take care of its commitments, including security and defense, and improve its capabilities. This is why anyone concerned about our defense should also be concerned about public finances. I have said before that the strength of small nation often lies in its agility. In Finland's case, the ability to make our own choices quickly, even in difficult situations. But the strength of small nation also lies in its ability to be united when needed. Our society is based on democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Our society is built on trust. This has been a crucial part of our resilience. The changing world and the new challenges facing us will highlight the importance of resilience even more. And in open and democratic society like Finland, we must be able to engage in discussion, even critical discussion, on all topics. However, in these times, the public discourse in our societies has become more and more polarized. We should remember that freedom goes hand in hand with responsibilities. And we should remember that value of listening to others' opinions. Because if polarization leads to us not having trust in society, we will lose a critical element of our strength. Because at the end, in addition to deterrence and defense, there is also the third D that is key to our security: democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Orpo. And if I can just immediately ask Foreign Minister Valtonen to take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased that we have such an informed and committed group of leaders, practitioners, and experts gathered here to discuss the security of Europe. This year, the theme of the Helsinki Security Forum is Deter, Defend, and Secure. Europe in the era of radical uncertainty. I am convinced that on this topic, these 3 days will be well spent. November this year marks the 10th anniversary since the inception of the Euromaidan protests in Maidan, the Independence Square in Kiev, Ukraine. The demonstrations were sparked by President Viktor Yanukovych's sudden decision not to sign the European Union Association Agreement, instead choosing closer ties to Russia. Ukraine's parliament had overwhelmingly approved of finalizing the agreement with the EU but Russia put pressure to reject it. The Ukrainian people had chosen freedom, an end to corruption, and a European way of life. But a neighboring force wanted to deny those. The following year, Russia illegally annexed Crimea. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the past months since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia have forced us to rethink European security. We have gone from a time of cooperative security to a time of deterrence and defense. Western partners have responded with unprecedented decisions on sanctions and defense material for Ukraine. This work will continue, and Finland will firmly do her part. In these uncertain times, the goals of Finland's foreign and security policy remain: to safeguard Finland's independence and territorial integrity, to avoid becoming involved in a military conflict, and to improve the security and well-being of the people in Finland. Finland's foreign and security policy is based on the rule of law, democracy, human rights, and equality. As a member of NATO, Finland is now part of Euro-Atlantic deterrence and defense. We aim at securing the stability of Europe as a whole. We are a key contributor to NATO's efforts in further developing its deterrence and defense in Northern Europe and elsewhere. By participating in NATO peacetime missions, we demonstrate our willingness to bear a fair responsibility for the security of the entire alliance. The nature of deterrence is not only military. We are happy to share with our partners and allies the Finnish model of comprehensive security and preparedness. Our approach to resilience, where we involve the entire society, makes NATO stronger. In this field, we also support closer cooperation between NATO and the European Union. Similarly, we promote cooperation in securing supply chains, access to critical resources, and ensuring connectivity in crisis. We get ready for different scenarios through joint military exercises and promoting arrangements for critical resources. The Finnish policy is rooted in historical experience. Over the years, we have maintained our national capabilities. We never let our guard down. This government is committed to spending at least 2% of Finland's GDP on defense. We aim at making this our long-term policy. By leading by example, we encourage our European partners to do the same. Our NATO membership will not make other partnerships and arrangements redundant. We continue to intensify our defense cooperation in the Nordics. Our close cooperation with the Baltic countries will further deepen. During the coming months, we aim to conclude the Defence Cooperation Agreement with the United States. The UK-led JEF will be an important part of defence, not to mention the common security and defence policy of the European Union. We support the strategic compass of the EU and lay special focus on merit-based common procurement and a ramp-up of the defence industry. Ladies and gentlemen, a new iron curtain has fallen on our eastern border. But even in the midst of war, it is important to emphasize that Northern European security arrangements are not offensive. On the very contrary, Finland adheres in all its actions to law and international treaties and contributes to peace and stability in our region. We call on Russia to end its war of aggression and return to adhering to the international rules it has contributed to and helped create in the past. Europe's security architecture does not accept spheres of interest, nor will we give room for those to arise. The EU and NATO don't expand by force, but by the free will of people. Both these organizations remain open to new members who meet the criteria. Dear friends, there will be a day when the Ukrainian people will be proud members in both the European Union and NATO. This is the future the people of Ukraine took to the streets for at Maidan, which they for years have been voting for and now have been forced to fight for. This is the promise we keep to all people in our neighborhood who want to create a society that subscribes to our values: the rule of law, democracy, human rights, and equality. No oppression will ever, ever silence the yarn for freedom, and it is our duty to stand by its side. Thank you.
If I could ask Prime Minister Kaja Kallas to join us here on stage. Thank you. Prime Minister Kaja Kallas and Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen, it is a deep honor to have both of you here on the stage at the Helsinki Security Forum. Both of your clarity, speech, analysis, and action have made European, Ukrainian security better in the face of Russian wanton violence. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
You've made an impact in your societies and in Europe, and I think future historians will honestly be able to look, Prime Minister Kallas, at your call and efforts to arm Ukraine before the war as a turning point in how the rest of Europe viewed the importance of arming and supporting Ukraine. Thank you for those efforts. Because we've heard Foreign Minister Valtonen already speak, the first question comes to Prime Minister. What are the lessons learned from Russia's aggression against Ukraine, and how should the EU and NATO best adapt to this new security reality?
Well, we have learned a lot, but some of the things we actually already knew, and maybe some of you learned more than we did because we already knew. But let's not go back to that. I think it is important to understand what we do here and further. Have we learned from the past, or are we making the same mistakes all over again? I mean, I have the comparison to 2014, what you were referring to when Crimea was annexed. I was a member of European Parliament at that time, and I was surprised how fast the international community said that, okay, nothing to see here, let's draw the line, everybody goes on with their business, and you know, Crimea is gone, forget about it. And I was looking and seeing that this is how can this be? Because you have the United Nations, you have the United Nations Charter that says it's illegal to attack another country, territorial integrity of another country, sovereignty of another country, and nothing happens if somebody does. So the lesson from that time was that you know, we have to prepare because nobody is safe. And I think today is the same. It's the same. That we have to prepare. We are in this for the long haul. I mean, Putin is hoping that this operation is the operation without anesthesia, but they are just enduring the pain much longer. And we have to understand that we are in this for the long haul. And we have to avoid falling into the traps we have in these uncertain times. The first trap is a trap of hope. A trap of hope that this counter counteroffensive is going to be, or there's going to be a fast win. And if there's not, we're going to drop our deeds because it's not delivering the results. So the second trap is the trap of hope for negotiations to solve the problem. If we say that the land grab is okay, the war crimes, attacking another country is okay, let's settle this with negotiations and negotiations only, then we actually invite the other aggressors or would-be aggressors in the world to do the same, because nothing happens to you. You walk away with more territories you had before. The third trap is a trap of fear. Russia is very well playing on us being afraid and clearly designing the threats to each and every one of us. Okay, you are afraid of nuclear weapons. Okay, I will threaten you with that. You are afraid of something else, a migration. Okay, I will threaten you with that. So we shouldn't fall into that. And in relation to that is the fourth trap, which is a trap of the self-deterrence. Because we are afraid, we refrain from doing the decisions we would otherwise make because we are giving into this fear. And by deterring ourselves, what I want to stress here, defense is not escalation. So we shouldn't be falling into this trap. Weakness is escalation. I can tell you that, and we can see from Crimea and everything that has happened there. And the fifth trap is the trap of misinformation. We shouldn't forget that while the conventional war is going on, there's also a shadow war going on in other spaces, and misinformation is a big part of it. We have big technological platforms that are not really addressing this issue, and our societies are very vulnerable to these kind of traps. Maybe some are actually more aware of what is happening due to our history, and the others are more, I would say, naive in this regard, but we have to keep this in mind and not fall into those traps we are having ahead of us.
Right, thank you. If I can just continue, you mentioned peace and negotiating for it. You said on BBC Hard Talk, referring to Ukraine, we have to believe in victory. There's a difference between peace and peace. Can you open up a little bit more about this?
Yeah, it seems to me that I've been talking about this a lot, but yes, everybody understands that war is bad and peace is good. Every child knows that war is bad and peace is good, but there's also a difference between peace and peace. I mean, in Finland, after the Second World War, you had to, rebuilding of your country, prosperity, well-being of people in whole world, in Europe. On one side of the Iron Curtain. On the other side of the Iron Curtain, where we were occupied by Russia, we also had peace. We didn't have war after the Second World War, but that peace meant mass deportations. It meant killing a fifth of our population. It meant suppressing our culture and language. It meant nationalizing all our private property. Everything. So we lost our country, we lost our freedom, we lost our prosperity. I mean, before the war, we were richer than Finland, and we lost 50 years of that. So that means peace on Russian terms.
I mean, and to maintain that peace in the future, deterrence is needed. One of the reasons Finland joined was to gain more deterrence. So if I can switch to Minister Valtonen, the Finnish government program says that as a member of NATO, Finland's a security provider, a reliable partner. Agree with that. What I'd like to hear a little bit is how you envisage Finland's role and contribution to NATO in some more concrete terms. And I realize the coming defense white papers will talk about more about that. But a few concrete examples maybe of how Finland is thinking of doing this.
Well, of course, we will be included in full in NATO's defense planning and of course the operational planning, and then of course we'll participate in the peacetime missions. But we are still in the process and it's still work in progress, so to say. But of course, we will contribute, and we have very unique capabilities here. Well, especially what comes to the Arctic, we have one of the strongest reservist-based armies in Europe, not just in relative terms, but in absolute terms. We have very strong focus on the comprehensive security bit, this total defense, like Ambassador Sauer pointed out. I think there's a lot we can contribute also if we could just somehow fill it into a glass and distribute around Europe this willingness to defend your own country, because we do indeed score very high in that. And I don't think it's only got to do with the fact that we train our public sector to interface with the private sector and NGOs if there were a crisis. But I think it's more of a mindset thing. And well, I guess that's needed, because otherwise, of course, if we are facing a crisis, then all of a sudden everybody is aware of it. But in order to deter, you need to be aware of it 5 years, 50 years before. So that's, I guess, something that the entire alliance will benefit from, but also very much the European Union. For the first time in the government program, we actually really do lay out what the differences are from the Finnish perspective in foreign security policy in both these organizations, because traditionally in Finland we have, of course, relied very much on European security and defense cooperation, which is fantastic, but it just still wasn't there. And of course the EU is a civilian organization and does not even intend to be anything like NATO. So now that we point out that both these organizations are also needed in this field, and they are complementary, and for instance, the European Union can focus and should focus very much on issues like military mobility, also ramping up the defense industry, because it's got very much to do with the common procurement. And I want to also point out in my speech this merit-based, which means that we have a level playing field for all companies, also from here in the high north, so to say, to participate in all the actions that we undertake.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to build on this willingness to defend your country, and this is something that we share with Finland. I mean, we have conscription, and it was surprising to me. I was speaking to one of the leaders of one southern country, and they were like, "Oh, if we would introduce conscription, it would be highly unpopular." And I was like, "Why?" Because that is actually, very popular in Estonia to learn how to defend your country and be able to do that. So because that's your home, but it depends, I think, on our history. I mean, sometimes on the European level, I still feel that for some, the discussion about security is a nice intellectual discussion to be having. For us, it's an existential issue. And what comes to the defense spending, I mean, Estonia has spent 2% of our GDP over 10 years on defense and building our army and defense capabilities. Now we have increased the budget to 3.2% of our defense or of our GDP on defense, because the threat is very much real. And in NATO, I was surprised to read that in 1988, actually all the members of NATO were spending more than 2% of their GDP on defense. And why? Because the threat was real. The Cold War was going on. And I'm surprised that although there is a conventional war going on in Europe, still some of the countries think that we are further away and we don't actually have to spend that much on defense. And I find this very, very worrying, because in order to deter, that the deterrence would be real and credible, It has to be based on the defense capabilities that we have. And if we don't invest to our defense, the deterrence is not credible. And if the deterrence is not credible, it provokes Russia to make another step, because weakness provokes, or weakness is provoking escalation, I would say.
Thank you. You're both political leaders, and you've both had leadership positions in the private sector, which I think is important to have both of these perspectives. So I want to ask you about leadership. If we're in this era of radical uncertainty, what attributes must the leaders we choose have, and what kind of people or advisors should those leaders surround themselves with?
I look at the more experienced Prime Minister here, please.
Yeah. You know, in human years, the 3 years as Prime Minister is much longer, but it is true. I was hoping that you take the first shot, because I don't have a good answer. I think you have a room full of analysts, and maybe they can tell better. The advisors have to be diverse and also understanding. I think one of the qualities that we all need is the quality of listening. I mean, I've been reading about history of different allies, because I mean, we are in Europe and we think that we know because we learn in school the history of different countries, but actually we don't know. And to understand where others are coming from, what is their historical background, why they are saying the things they are saying, or why they are having this approach to things as they are having, you have to understand their historical background, because you know very well your history and why you are believing what you are believing. But in order to understand and make a difference, you have to listen and understand what your friends are, what are their fears, what are their worries, and what, of course, is their vision for the future, in order to be convincing enough. But yes, it's maybe a very broad answer.
I guess in the private sector, what you learn is that you never should take existential risks. And typically you even can't, because you're operating on your own money. Yeah. But if you look at the public sector, I think there you should be even more careful, because you're operating on someone else's money. And I think that leads to the fact that even though as political leaders, obviously you need to have very clearly in the head, based on which values you operate and what the direction is where you want the world to be going. But of course, at the same time, and especially as small countries as we are, you can't really influence as much, at least not in the short term, where the world is going. So you need to also take many things for given. But as things come as given, then what you can do still is concentrate on the issues that are on your table, and that is effective risk management. And I guess it's just about choosing the battles, choosing the risks that you're taking, and then try to get rid of those which you really don't want. And I think, like Prime Minister said, the existential risk, which is the one of the existence, that's not the risk that you want to be presenting to your voters and the citizens of your country. So that puts security and defense already at a very high priority. But I think Prime Minister Orpo also pointed out very well that if we don't take care of our finances and our, basically our economic performance and our competitiveness there, and this does not only apply to Finland, but for the entire European Union, where we are a little bit losing ground now, then in the long term, it's very, very difficult to take care of your security and defense either.
Mm.
Thank you. A week ago or so, I went to eastern Finland and looked at what I thought of as the edge of the nuclear umbrella we're now both under. Finland and Estonia, what do you think, or how do you conceive or think about Finland's and Estonia's contribution to Europe's nuclear umbrella or nuclear deterrence? Because we haven't really touched that component of deterrence yet.
We don't have nuclear arms, so we are not contributing in this regard. We bring other things to the table.
NATO's nuclear mission is broad, yes?
Yes. No, I mean, we bring other things to the table that are equally important, and cybersecurity, for example, because cyber threats are something that considering the nowadays world where everything is connected, then, years ago, hospitals or some private companies had to only worry about, somebody coming and stealing their stuff. But now, actually, they are part of the bigger security picture. And therefore, whether these things are secure, the systems are secure and not under any attacks is part of the security picture as whole, but the nuclear deterrence is provided by those who have nuclear arms.
Well, as a fresh member, I guess it suffices to comment that, of course, one of the key deterrences of NATO is the nuclear umbrella. It has to be said. And as a member of NATO, we will contribute also to that deterrence based on our own legislation and the policies we are going to form in the coming months.
Just one thing that I want to add is that NATO is your own defense plus the collective defense of the allies, and I think Estonia is in the best position because we have in Estonia 3 countries that have nuclear weapons in NATO. So we have the French troops, we have the UK troops, and we have the US troops. So that acts as a real deterrent also to our aggressive neighbor, because attacking us would be directly and from the first minute attacking the 3 countries that have nuclear weapons.
All right, we're almost at the end, but we have one last question. So one of the reasons we do what we do, I think most people in this room, is so that future generations could live in a better world. So I asked my 2 kids what I should ask the 2 of you. And they had questions about what your daily work actually entails and whether or not you always want to impact society and be in politics. But I picked this easy one to end our discussions with. And I recognize we don't have a lot of time, but the question is, what does the future of international politics look like to you?
That's an easy one.
If I may start here. Despite all the even the dystopian feelings we might have had in the past months or so, we need to remember that in the grand scheme of things, the world has always moved to a better direction and has become better over the course of not only hundreds of years, but also in decades. And I guess as political leaders, our contribution can be to maybe keep that pace going, at least not change the direction. And I'm fully convinced that our children also will be living in a more peaceful and more prosperous and less violent world, just like we have been able to, comparing with our parents and our grandparents.
Yeah. I think if you read history, then every such big crisis is also an opportunity window for international law to develop. And I think every next time we have more peace in the world still. After the Second World War, the United Nations was created together with the United Nations Charter, which is a very good document saying what should and countries should do and should not do and should do. But there is also an opportunity window now to make it better and to really clearly discuss and agree on what happens if somebody breaches the charter still. And there I am talking about accountability. What we want to achieve is to not only to achieve the peace in Ukraine, but also cut this historical cycle of Russia constantly attacking its neighbors. It's the last colonial power there really is in the world, and in order to cut this historical cycle, we need the accountability part to be also agreed amongst the international community in order to have a more peaceful world tomorrow.
Thank you, Prime Minister Kallas and Minister Valtonen, for your wise words, your analysis, insights, and time. I can only hope Europe and the world in the future will have more politicians like the two of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.